What about now? Right. That's where, this is not a non-occurrence, but we'll just okay. Now you can hear me. Okay, I don't know. All right. Well, this person needs no no further mention. I said hello like a bunch of times. Third time was a charm. Yes, here we go. How are y'all? First of all, let me give a shout out to everybody in chat. What is up, everyone? So Sanchez, I see you. Rouster, Ambi, Lo-Fi, Wit, uh, who Simpleton, Cammy, Obi Rose, thank you all for joining us. We have a super, super special guest. He needs no, you see the name in there. This is a celebrity in the gaming community and the cloud gaming community, especially. Um, you know, 12,000, 13, who knows? He has thousands of subscribers, putting out amazing content, keeping us up to date all the time. And so without further ado, we are going to bring you none other than Bryant, the mind behind the Nerf Report / Nerf Gaming / we're going to get name changes, what happened there. But how are you?
I'm doing well. I was tempted to mute my mic to begin with, but I've been there before. It's just like it's that awkward delay with like trying to figure out if chat can. It's the worst.
Yeah. Well, it was weird because usually when they're like the mic's muted, and I was like, no, there's no light. It can't be muted. And then I was like, oh, there's no light. It's not like because we were just talking.
Yeah.
So I was like, what happened? But to tell you the truth, about every other podcast, my mic's muted, so they're kind of used to it.
I feel like if you're a streamer and that hasn't happened to you at least like once, it's you're doing something wrong. Like it's a streamer like Boy Scout, Girl Scout badge. Like stream with the muted mic. It's one of them.
I actually have the achievement of probably 100 times. So do it that. You're like, well, Purple, you probably shouldn't be streaming anymore. But it is what it is. But how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for inviting me on this. I've always been a fan of kind of this little shindig that you have over here with Shades of Purple. So when you asked, can I come on? I was like, yes, let's do it.
You were actually one of the first people, like you said, hey, you're doing, like we were in the single digits. Like I think it was the third or fourth episode. And you're like, can I be on it? And I was like, I can't have you on. You're a pretty big name. I got to build up to you. So super excited to have you on and just talking through this. I've been a big fan of your channel. And you've always been like, if I write something, you've always been responsive, which is like amazing to me how you do it. But a lot of us know Nerf from basically like the toy Nerf. But or some of us know Nerf because our favorite characters in video games get Nerf. But in your situation, where does Nerf come from?
Yeah, you kind of hit on it towards the end. The idea was like in video games when something's overpowered or it's too like OP, the developer will nerf something and kind of bring it back down to like normal level. And when I started my channel 6, 7, something like that, 6 years ago, I think, and basically the idea was like, for the gamer who is trying to play video games and trying to enjoy their hobby, there's so many different voices and so many different concepts out there. It'd be great if somebody could just like nerf the news down into like what I need to know. And I was like, well, why don't I do that? And I was like, okay, yeah, let's create this channel. And it's evolved, it's grown, it's gone through its iterations. Like any YouTube channel, it's had its awkward stages. I like to ignore those awkward stages, but yeah, I mean that's kind of where the name came from.
Yeah, I've actually thank you for that. I didn't know that. I actually remember coming across your channel when you have like some of the best production value out there, right? You've created a set just for where you do your show or I guess your updates. That is, you take it on the road with you. We see you in hotels. You just have an amazing production value on your show. And I remember watching you one time, and it was like I think you were like starting to hover right around 1,000 to 2,000. It was around that range, and in my mind, I kept thinking like, how does this dude like not bigger. And it was funny because I was watching you, and then you said you actually like hinted towards that towards the end of the actual segment you were doing. But then all of a sudden, like you really started to kind of take off and overtake a lot of channels there in the cloud community. Um, a lot of people who come to on the show are just starting in their streaming journey. Some of them are kind of maybe have hit a wall. For you, being because you are now in the 5-digit subscriber count number and growing, for you, what advice do you have for people who, and usually we ask this at the end, but I want to get into your story and other
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So I'm asking you now, what advice do you have for people who are kind of starting off, right? And they are doing amazing content. They're putting great news out there, and they are probably not where they think they should be, right? That's on one side. And then other people who maybe hit that goal, right? A lot of people, it's 1,000 subs, right? 4,000 watch hours. But now it's like, where do they go from there? Right.
Right.
Like, it's almost like when you get to, it seems like a huge, like, I don't know, way out in the distance when you get to 1,000. But the difference between like 1,000 and like that next level, you're like, holy crap, that's a long
Yeah.
way. So, how would you talk about those two different journeys?
Yeah, I think one of the things I learned, and a lot of it is to the credit of Stadia, right? And if it wasn't for what Stadia was going through and kind of that whole journey, what I took away from that was that like niching down on a niche when it comes to content creating is oftentimes like the best solution. So, Stadia for what it was, it didn't have as big of an audience as like PlayStation or Xbox or Nintendo, and it didn't have the pool of content creators like those other platforms do. So, like there's already the leaders in PlayStation content, and there's already the leaders in the Xbox content. But when it came to like Stadia, nobody was making content, or there were people making content, but it wasn't as much as the other ones. So, um, doubling down on that niche and just being like, all right, we're going to own this topic and we're just going to create content as much as possible and try to be the leader in it. That definitely helped kind of like catapult the growth. A lot of YouTube is luck. Like people like to say, like, oh, I've got the formula, I understand the algorithm. 99.9% of YouTube is luck. If you look at a lot of the Stadia content creators and where they spiked, there were certain time periods, like the cyberpunk type period. 90% of the creators just skyrocketed and had huge amounts of growth, but that wasn't anything that we did. We were still creating content. It's just the interest in that topic was coming in and people were looking for it. So my suggestion on that end would be like find topics that not a lot of people are talking about and own it. I think Amazon Luna is a really interesting one, like right there, because that's one that there's not a lot of content creators embracing. Same with GeForce Now. It feels like everybody and their mother is talking about GeForce Now, but when in the reality of things, there's still the ability for a creator to be out there and be like, I'm going to be the main source for GeForce or the main focus for NVIDIA content and stuff like that. Going to the second part of that question about like goals, and man, that is a question that I deal with on a daily basis because like even though you hit the number that you think is like, okay, that's what I want to hit, the doubt doesn't go away, the burnout doesn't go away. Every week there's still a conversation in my head that I'm like, is this really worth it? Like, is this worth creating the content? And talking with larger creators, I don't think that that ever goes away. The good news is, I think that in today's world, subscriber counts mean less today than they ever did in the past. And building a community that's interacting with your content and talking and coming to live streams like this is almost more important, in my opinion, than subscriber accounts. Because from potential brands or partners, what they're going to look at is being like, wow, Purple does this stream and she has X amount of viewers watching this and communicating every single Thursday. That's someone I want to work with versus someone who has 1 million subscribers and only gets like 1,000 views or something like that. I don't know if that makes sense, but up here it does.
Um, what I am going to take away from that is the people who come to Shades of Purple are worth 1 million subscribers. That is what I'm going to take. Each
Yeah.
one of you is in yourself worth about 50,000 subscribers. And
Yeah.
you heard it from Bryant from the Nerf Report.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is like embrace your audience and understand that like every platform is unique, right? Like there's so much talk about like TikTok and Twitch and YouTube, but like to assume that your audience is going to be the same on each platform is so different. Like we post audio versions of the podcast and those get like 12 views, but we post like full episodes or shorts or TikToks, and TikToks will get like, we had a TikTok hit almost 800,000 views like 2 weeks ago. And like I've never had a piece of content on YouTube or even audio form hit that number. So it's just like it's constantly trying to reach out to new audience members on different platforms. And then sorry, we keep going on to this, but there's a great analogy, and I love this one. Is there's a story about a kid on summer break, and he was told by his dad to build a wall, and he's like, this wall's going to take forever to build, and his dad goes, well, you don't set out and say, I'm going to build the best wall in the world. You set out and you lay the first brick perfectly as that brick can be laid. You put a second brick right next to it as perfectly as that brick can be laid, and so on and so on and so on, and then eventually you have a wall. And I think that that's the perfect analogy for content creation in YouTube, is that so many people, including myself, want to wake up and have 1 million subscribers. But in reality, it's building that catalog, building that relationship with your audience, and building the comfortability to talk on camera and to have those, conversations as well.
No, that's super. I like that. It's super. It's very deep, Bryant.
Yeah.
Really deep, really deep. And I want to shout out Jeff Janak. He sent his viewers over. If y'all have not been watching Jeff, he was trying out the finals from Embark Studios. Y'all know I am really bullish on Embark Studios. I think they're a great studio team. VetCloud Gaming, one of the Stadia OG people says, "What's up, Xbox International Podcast? Thank you so much for coming by, Crazy Louie and Rudigs. There you are, another Shades of Purple alumni. Thank you so much, y'all, for coming by. We're talking here with Bryant from the Nerf Report, who was there thick and thin with us in the Stadia community, but also is a fairly successful content creator here on YouTube. So really it's something for everybody, as well as before Stadia, he was building content, right? And we're going to be talking about that, like kind of that journey and where it took it. But Bryant, we always start off with a question.
Ooh.
We want to go before the Nerf Report.
Okay.
Before the YouTube,
Okay.
before the lights, before the supermodels, before all of that, we want to go to, what was your first gaming memory? When did you say this was cool?
Oh man, that's there's a lot of moments, right? Like my first gaming memory is definitely Star Fox 64. I remember playing that as a kid, like all the time. I have memories of the SNES, but I don't really remember playing it. So like Star Fox 64 is like the game that I always think about when I was a kid. And I was like, oh, gaming is awesome. But if I was being truthful, I would say The Last of Us, when it came out on PlayStation 3, was probably the first game that I was like, oh my God, like what have video games become? Because between that time, it was like always like sports games and racing games and stuff like that. I never really got to experience like this whole narrative genre of gaming. And that was probably the moment that like it was all over. I was like, oh, I'm in. Like this game is fantastic. Yeah.
So that's actually pretty wide spectrum right there, right? Because Star Fox 64 came out, y'all, if Crow Resin, you can check this, but I think it's like 1996, 97 time frame, right? It was like one of the first games on 64. And if you're going to go with The Last of Us and PS3, I mean, that's almost like a 15-year.
Yeah. And the thing is, like in
frame.
between there was like, we had the GameCube, we had the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 3, but like none of the games really like resided with me. Like it was just like, oh yeah, we're playing the new WWE game, or we're playing Madden or something like that. We never really played the Uncharted's, the Crash Bandicoots, the Spyros of the world. Like we literally like would just play whatever game we got from Blockbuster, and that was it. So it's like literally from Star Fox, the next game to impact me would definitely probably be The Last of Us. Yeah, that's a big gap.
Wow. So would you say, and I love it here, thank you, Obi Rose, for it. '97,
Ooh.
and Rudig's always says it. He cries at the end. Like he cried it. Like Rudig's every game you mention, you're like, I cried at the end of it. That man knows his feelings, and that is okay. I just want to say that right off the bat. Rudix, we're so happy to have you back from vacation, by the way. Thank you so much. And Mr. Joanna Dark, I didn't say hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Xbox International in the house. Thank you all so much. So let me get back here. I remember that. That is actually a pretty tragic story. I don't want to ruin anything for you, but Star Fox 64 has like revenge and like has like mystery, and then has a big monkey head. It has everything.
Well, and I also think that like you have to like looking back on it today, like for like someone who's in their like 19, like their teenage years, right? And they're looking at Star Fox, they're like, oh, it's an old, but like you got to realize like I beat the game and then I went to school the next day and someone's like, oh, did you play the Katina base? And I was like, what is the Katina base?
Because you can go different levels to get to the end.
They're like, yeah, you got to go through the waterfall and then you fight a noob. I'm like, what? And like all of that was word of mouth because like we had a computer, but my parents were like, you can't touch it. So like we had to like discover those things as we were playing. Like it was just such a magical time in gaming.
Yeah, no, it was. And shout out to Harold to see you there coding. Hopefully we can make that go a little bit quicker and you get your syntax correct. Or just use ChatGPT. Whatever you want to use there. But welcome, Harold. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, no, I think Star Fox, I've mentioned it here. So I first played Star Fox on Super Nintendo.
Okay.
I thought it was so cool back then, and then 64 came out, and it was kind of cool because you started having the levels where it was kind of 3D in a way, right? Like the first one, it's like very straightforward, and you're kind of going. But then the 64 one, you kind of have these, like the first time where you can do like the loops and come back and those that type of thing. So it was super. I continue to think Star Fox was a really great game. So just quick and really quick, and then we'll come back to your timeline. Did you ever play Chorus? It was on Stadia. It's like another. You did. What did you think of that? So I watch a lot of people play this game.
Yeah.
Like, so.
I think here's the thing. One of my gripes about it was that when I was playing it on the screen, the text was so small that it was hard to actually see it. But like, it was a solid dogfighting game. Like, it ran really well on Stadia. The graphics were fantastic. I never got super deep into the story, but it was one of those. I'm like, man, this is solid. This is cool. Was that your favorite game on Stadia?
Chorus? Oh no.
What was your favorite game on Stadia?
My favorite game on Stadia, I would have to go with it. It was one of the more recent ones.
Don't say Peppa Pig. Don't say Peppa Pig.
I am not. I have not. I have not. I think it's my favorite game on Game Pass. If I had to say, they actually came on the show about a year ago. The developers of this game, but Lamote.
Oh yeah,
I love
that was
Lamote.
a really trippy game with like the little cubes and you're going through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have a little crocheted Lamote up there that Rabalika, who was another one of the women streamers of Stadia, she actually made that, and I won in a contest. So Lamote will always be near and dear to my heart. But I loved it. But we'll get to Stadia. You're gonna make me You're gonna make me feel like I'm Rudix, where I'm starting to cry here. Can't cry.
You're good.
Yeah, Orcs Plus 3, Orcs Plus 3 is also as well, roster. We'll ask this question. Favorite game on Stadia? Not yet, but we'll ask this to the chat because a lot of people here. And then we'll also ask like just favorite game to the chat for their favorite platform as well. So some other people who didn't partake in Stadia can also we can see what they would say. So would you say when you were growing up, did you consider yourself a gamer, or were you more or less it's kind of like something you did?
We definitely played video games, but like it was just like nothing really stood out. Like NFL Blitz, we played that as kids on the N64. The GameCube, like we played a bunch of the Mario games. So like gaming has always been there. Probably in between like the PlayStation 2 generation, between PlayStation 3, I kind of fell off, and then kind of aging myself, but when I graduated high school, I bought myself a PlayStation 3 when they were like
Aging yourself.
600 or whatever. They were so stupid expensive when they first came out. And I remember I saved up and I bought it. And that was probably like the reintroduction back into like having gaming back in my life full time. But yeah, I mean, I would consider myself a gamer, but I also like, I don't know. It's like it's the conversation of like, is a casual gamer still a gamer, or are like we talking hardcore gamer? Because I don't know if I was hardcore, but I definitely gamed as a kid.
Yeah, I think hardcore. I think that's funny where you're like, I aged myself, graduated high school, bought a PS3. I'm like, I graduated high school and I think the Soviet Union was still a thing. But
According to
that's
YouTube, half of my audience is like 15, 16 years old, so I'm definitely aging myself.
but so yeah, I think when I think this term like hardcore gamer to me came up actually not through console. Like
Mm,
when I associate it, when I look back at hardcore gamer, first time I really heard that was when I was in the army, and some of my soldiers, they would kind of consider themselves like, you know, Captain. Well, I'm not gonna say my name, but Captain Purple. Like
right,
I
yeah, yeah.
am a, like I'm a gamer, and it was always World of Warcraft. Like that was about that time. So in my mind, I always kind of associate PC like that
Hmm.
that original like or one of the first metaverses in my mind
Yeah,
as a hardcore gamer. But
yeah.
casual, uh, and some of the chat knows this. I have a friend. Her name's Holly, and she's like this big time finance type of person. And one time, I felt really timid as a woman telling another woman like, "Hey, I play games." It's kind of like this weird. It's a weird thing to do for women to do, right? So I was like,
Mm.
"Yeah, Holly, I play games." And she's like, "Oh, really?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "But I'm kind of a casual. There's a lot more hardcore gamers." And she's like, "Really? Do they compete?" And I go, "No." And then she goes, "Oh, then you're all casuals." I was like, "What do you mean?"
Oh,
And I found out that Holly was like the Street Fighter national champion in China back in the 90s. And
oh my
she's like,
God.
yeah. And so in her mind, she kind of like differentiates. She's like, hardcore or not, you're all that unless you're getting paid to
Yeah,
game. So
yeah. Way
that's
to
how I
flex,
kind of
Holly.
different. Yeah, huge flex, huge flex. You would not think it like if you see her, she's kind of like this very
Yeah,
proper person, but I guess like back in the day, she was Street Fighter, and like
yeah.
that was her thing.
Can we
Um,
can we can we know like so you played World of Warcraft?
I not I wouldn't say I played it.
Okay, okay.
I demoed it. Are you a World of
Okay.
Warcraft player?
No, because that is a game that there are games in my life that I'm like, I'm not gonna touch that because I know that I will just like throw myself into it. And World of Warcraft is one of those that like I saw my friends be like, we're playing tonight and we're gonna do a 24-hour playthrough. And I'm like, yeah, no, no. I'm like, I'm not looking for that in my life right now.
So do you think this is actually cool because we never heard this? I haven't heard this actually. So you're saying that you think you don't want to play it because you feel like it's just going to suck you in,
Yes.
and you chat. Do
Yeah.
y'all have a game like that? I'm curious to chat. Do y'all have a game that you said I don't want to play because I feel like I'm going to like basically it's going to become an
Hmm.
addiction.
Yep. Yeah, that's where I always found like a couple of years ago there was the topic of gaming addiction. And a lot of gamers were like, "Oh, it's not a real thing. It's not a real thing." And I'm like, "Well, no, as a gamer, I will tell you I have been addicted to games. Like when PUBG first came out, like I was addicted to PUBG. I was like sweating when I was playing, and like when I would die, I'd be like, "Put me back in, put me back in, put me back in." Like what you would see out of the Vegas casino where someone's just like run it again, run it again. And it's just like there are certain games where I look at them and I'm just like, nope, like I cannot invest my time in that. Like I
You're not gonna do it. Wow. And so
mm,
and welcome Chariot Man Gaming, another someone who's about to hit 1,000 subscribers, has been there
hey,
OG. And also I saw someone else just Ray the Gaming Cyborg, another OG one coming through the chat. And if y'all did not know, Happy belated birthday to Ray.
Yeah.
Spent it at Fogo
Happy
de
birthday.
Chao. Delicious
Fogo
Brazilian.
de Chao.
Yes, we saw that. Delicious there. So yeah, I think if there's games where I now look at and I'm like, do I want to spend 80 hours doing this?
Yeah.
Like there's only one game that can do that for me.
Mhm.
And it's coming up. You know,
Starfield?
it's Starfield.
No.
Right. If
No.
you could
No.
tell me what Starfield is about, like how am I gonna make a judgment? I gotta
Yeah.
watch out because Ray is looking forward to Starfield. But
What's
how
your 80-hour game?
Tears of the Kingdom? Is there any question?
Oh, okay. See, yeah, okay.
Oh my god! Whoa! Wait, Cammy, did we just see? Hey, Chariot Man is at 1,000 subscribers. Congratulations, Chariot!
Congratulations, bud.
Congratulations, Chariot Man. I'm sorry I missed that one, but if you were live streaming during it, but thank you so much for letting us know, Cammy. Awesome job, Chariot Man,
Yeah.
joining the ranks there of what do they call it on YouTube? Partners?
It's the cardboard play button.
You look at that cardboard play button group.
Yep.
That's a merit badge.
When I hit 1,000 subscribers on my channel, I cut out a cardboard play button and I stuck it on the wall.
Yeah.
So it was just like
That's
I gotta
huge.
hit.
That
Yeah,
is
yeah.
huge.
It's a big milestone for any creator. Like it's huge.
And for Chariot Man, you know, he is kind of I think y'all have a similar journey where you started with Nintendo. I think if I'm not mistaken, or he started with Nintendo for sure. So you know, and I know a lot of some of the Stadia content creators, Ace, when he came on, talked about that journey from Nintendo as well. But Link TV has a couple of games: Division, Diablo, World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy. Link, what are you playing then? Like you're like, I'm gonna get addicted to this game. Like, are you just like gaming in games that you like? What are you playing? That's that's a lot of games there. But yeah. So, Destiny 2, Marvel Snap, that's a newer one for sure. Ambi actually plays Marvel Snap a lot. Diablo 3 is a great one. Yeah, Diablo 4 is coming out. I am actually looking forward to Diablo 4.
Yeah, Destiny is one of those games that sucked me in big time. Like I was playing that every single night till like 3 a.m.
The
And
first
now
or
that I
the
have
second one?
both.
First or the second one?
Both. I was hardcore Destiny.
Really? You're a Destiny player?
Yeah, and you know, it's one of those games, especially with Lightfall now coming out. I'm watching it and I've been trying to figure out how to make a video about it because like now that I'm a dad, and my schedule's completely just out there. The days of having these like marathon games or running raids are gone. So it's like the first time that I'm watching Destiny through the window and I'm just like, I don't get to experience this. And I'm just like, it's sad, but at the same time, it's just like, oh man, your life is changing. It's kind of fun.
No, so a lot of people, a lot of parents in chat, right? In the community, and I always think you all are just amazing parents. How would you say like having a child, right? Having responsibility, doing grown-up things, like has it changed your perception of your gaming? Or
Yeah, it has. Also, I'd say more in the sense of like changed your output. I'm definitely a lot less negative when it comes to games because it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, oh, this doesn't really matter. Like I'm just playing this game to kind of like unwind. But like my consumption has definitely plummeted probably. Like I'm probably playing at max 8 hours a week, like max. Like that's a good week. Some weeks it's like, hey, she's going down for a nap, so I'm just gonna play, and that's really the only time I get. But yeah, it's gaming does kind of change a lot of things for gamers once you have, or kids changes a lot for gamers in a way.
And you know, some of the people, some of the people who watch the show are kind of younger, don't have kids, and they'll listen to 8 hours, like listen that in a week, and they're like, "What?"
Yeah.
do you wish you had more time to game, or you're like, no, that's about the right balance in my life at the
I
moment?
think it's the right balance, but if I could get anything right now, it'd be sleep. Like, I would like, if someone
How
was like,
old is
"Do
your
you wanna
daughter?
game? Do you wanna game or do you wanna sleep?" And I'd be like, I'll take a nap." Like, I'll definitely take a nap right
How
now.
how old is your daughter? If
She
you
is, 16 months. So she's
16
toddler
months.
and, running the house and running my life, and, I love her to death, and it's, it changes your life. Like, people are like, "Oh, man, your life is gonna change so much when you're going through the pregnancy," and then you're like, "Yeah, okay," but, like, when it does finally happen, you're like, "Oh my god, so much has changed," you know? It just changes your perspective on everything.
Oh my gosh, I love hearing about like that growth and that mindset.
Mhm.
And what's going on. I think the Jaw, who I'm pretty sure I saw come through chat, just had her second child
Oh,
a
that's
few months
awesome.
ago. And then Windstar, who was a Shades of Purple alum, also had a child less than a year ago, I think, Windstar. So
Oh,
yeah, I
nice.
definitely so a lot I think it's a lot of sleep, a lot of people who are lacking sleep. I'll say
Yeah,
it like
yeah.
that.
My wife
So
has a photo of me, and whenever I, like, try to be like, "Oh, try to, like, pull out my gamer card," she pulls it out, and it's, like, me passed out on the couch holding my controller while the game is on, and it's like, I'm just so exhausted from being with my daughter for the day that I'm just like, even when I did get a chance to game, I'm just passed out, like, I'm not even gaming.
no, it's
Yeah,
awesome. Well, you already
yeah,
have the best game. You have your daughter.
yeah,
So, do you
yeah,
think
yeah.
you're gonna introduce her to gaming?
She already has a controller she runs around the
What?
house with. Yeah, she runs around the house, she'll hold it, and, it's just like when you have your younger sibling playing games and you hand them the controller that's not plugged in. Yeah, she'll definitely be into gaming. We were going through Target the other day, and we walked in the electronics section, and Mario Kart was on the screen, and she was infatuated by that game. Like, just loved all the colors and everything moving, and I was like, oh, I don't own Mario Kart. So this week when the sale hit, I was like, well, I'll pick this up. I was like, we've got a good while until she'll play video games, but at least I'll have Mario Kart for when she's ready.
So I always, it's funny because um. So I think it's. Did you did you just use your daughter for a reason to buy Mario Kart? I just want to know if that just happened because Cami does this all the time. If you
Yeah,
did not know, Cami is a vlogger. She's in chat right now. She
yeah,
always shows us the toys she gets her daughter, Skyland, baby girl, and it's very obvious Cami
yeah,
bought these for herself.
yeah,
So
yeah. Like, if you go to, like, that's part of the benefit of having kids is you get to buy, like, toys you've always wanted. Like, if you go through my kid's playroom, it's like she's got lightsabers. She runs around as like a little toddler with a lightsaber and has fights with me. And, like, yeah, you always just buy things for them, but it's really for you. Like,
I
that's the
love
secret of being a parent.
I, oh my gosh, my mom, she watches this show. She's out there, Mama Haze. She usually catches it the next day. Um, but I love that. I love it. And,
Yeah.
and Simpleton said, "Oh, still calibrating by months. Counting time by months."
Yep,
And
yep, yep.
yes. So we're gonna pick up back on your timeline. Kid, we're gonna come back to your daughter, come back to family, come back to growing up. So PlayStation, obviously, we see you are representing PlayStation a lot today.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You're like about that. So, we're talking about The Last of Us. So you played The Last of Us, right?
Yes,
You
yes.
thought it was an amazing game. Obviously, we're getting to some touchy parts in the series for those who've
Mhm.
played the game coming up. So if you want to, if you want to find out what happens, play the game and then watch
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but how would you, at this point, did you think like, okay, I need to find another game like this, or were you like, this was an amazing series? Like, I guess what I'm asking is, and for me, there's a point in time where I stopped playing games because it was a game, and I started enjoying games because it was an experience.
Right.
Right. And it sounds like that's The Last of Us for you, right? You're like, this was like
Yeah.
something really special.
Yeah, I think it's like anytime you find a good author or you find a good director for movies, you're like, oh, what else have they done? And immediately that's what I did with The Last of Us. And Naughty Dog um, is probably one of my favorite studios that's out there, because then I immediately jumped into Uncharted. And Uncharted 4 came out shortly before that or after. And that game is probably like, if I'm gonna rank PlayStation games, Uncharted 4 is probably like top PlayStation game of all time in my opinion. Like I absolutely adore that game. And then like you start like, okay, what else has PlayStation done? And then you kind of go through all of their exclusives, and then you start following the blogs, and you get in like you just get hooked into this world. And then it's like, oh, the PlayStation 4 comes out, and then you get all of that stuff. And then, it's I think it's the journey that everybody kind of goes through when it comes to like discovering this world of gaming. And it's just it's fun.
No, I think Uncharted. Have we had anybody talk about Uncharted?
Highly. Have you played it?
I played a little bit. So the adventure game, obviously, the chick who will remain nameless on this channel, remain nameless. From the Tomb Raider series, we don't talk about her. It's a thing.
Okay.
We don't talk about her, but we did bring on Rihanna Pratchett, who wrote about
Nice.
this person, and she talked about Uncharted because of the Dude Raider, and she talked about like when they brought her in to kind of balance the ship. But I have not played it, action adventure. So what would you thought with Tomb Raider? Like, did you not like that one, or?
No, yeah. I mean, the Tomb Raider ones we played like PlayStation 1, like when they were out, like the original ones. Like we my neighbor had it and we played it over there. The remastered Tomb Raider games are great, but I still think Uncharted has it beat. Like
Really?
Uncharted, I still think is just one of those that's like that Uncharted 4 game is such a great story. And prior to that, I played 4 before I played any of the other Uncharted's. So I didn't know any of the backstory or anything like that. I just jumped straight into it. And that was like, oh man, this was amazing. Now I got to go play the original ones. I played those, and it was just like, I was so infatuated by that world. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is great. I do think Tomb Raider is a fantastic adventure game, and I know Amazon's working on it. And I was thinking about it the other day, and I was like, I don't know how you reinvent that franchise again after it's already been reinvented. But I was like, a really crazy move would be like, don't call it Tomb Raider, like call it Lara. Just call it Lara and just release it, and like do something weird like that to bring it to market. Because then it's like, okay, this isn't a Tomb Raider game; it's a Lara Croft game or something like that. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see where that franchise goes.
No, definitely. We'll have to see. Always intrigued with Amazon. We could always talk about Amazon in general with gaming. I look at what HBO has done with their franchises in there, and I'm looking forward to the Nintendo Mario movie for some odd reason.
You see the
Even though
trailer today?
I did not. There's a new trailer.
Yeah, they released the new trailer today. It looks really good. Like,
Does it? I
yeah,
mean, I'm gonna watch it. Like
yeah.
I'm super stoked about it. I'm super stoked to like go to Super Mario or Super Nintendo Land. They're saying that's getting like a lot of great reviews and it's a great experience. So I'm excited about it. And then when I look at Amazon, I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant on it. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at like the content they've created, they've never really created anything that's like out of the ball or like a home run. So it's definitely one of those. It's like you hope they're able to do it, but then at the same time, do you really want your first proving, your first proving ground to be Tomb Raider, like such a beloved franchise? It's kind of risky.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. And, speaking about risky things, we're gonna talk about another big tech company who took a risk.
All right.
Stadia.
Yes.
How did you get involved with the platform that was known as Stadia?
the artist formerly known as Stadia.
I wish I
Yeah,
was still an artist because that's all it's like I had. Like I wish I could say that,
yeah.
but
I, like many gamers, watched that original GDC press conference and was sold beyond the moon. I was like, you know what? I've been a PlayStation fan my whole life, but this is dope. Like, this is the first time that, and I've said this multiple times. It's like Stadia was the only next gen console that was out there. You know, when you looked at what like Xbox and PlayStation were doing between like Series X and the Xbox One and then the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 4, I didn't feel that they were making the same leap in technology as Google was doing with Stadia. Like, it felt like Stadia was a generation ahead of everyone else. Zero load times, the idea of opening up your phone and clicking a game and then boom, it's on your television. It was like this complete vision of a dream that captured my imagination. And then when it arrived, you have that litmus test, right? You get your founders edition, you plug it in, and you're like, I hope this works. And here I am as a Destiny 2 nut, and I'm like, I felt like I was playing on my PlayStation 4. I was like, how are they doing this? You know, and it was absurd's not a good word, but it almost is, because it didn't make sense. Like, it was magic. And that was when, like, okay, let's start making content about this, because this is such a cool technology that not a lot of people are talking about. And I feel like we need to make sure more people are aware, because if I'm thinking this is awesome as a gamer, other gamers will think that this is awesome as well.
yeah, no, I think. And were you the one who was playing Destiny on a Kindle?
Hmm.
That was
I'm sure we've made a video about that, but I don't know if I was the first.
so you actually played it on a Kindle. Like I think.
Yeah, I was trying to see if I had it. When Stadia shut down, I boxed everything up, and we made a video about it. But like, that's a legit thing. I've got a box of every video that we've ever made. Like, the joke was like, we're gonna try to see if we can get Stadia to run on anything.
Right, I
Um,
saw like you
yeah,
the smallest
the
screen.
smallest screen possible with Kindle, a Fire tablet, a Samsung tablet. We pitched Stadia on the idea of going to Cowboys Stadium and playing Stadia on the gigantic screen that's in the arena. And I was like, guys, do you not realize how awesome of a video this would be? And that it would be all over the place as far as news goes. Like, every outlet would talk about this. And unfortunately, they just weren't interested in making that video. And I was like, guys, like, oh, it would have been such a fun time.
That would have been crazy playing Stadia on like the jumbo screen that is Cowboy Stadium. That would
Yeah.
have been crazy.
And
Uh,
the other thing too is, like, I was talking with my buddy about it, and he goes, "Your mistake was saying Cowboy Stadium. You should have just said the Google Stadium that's out in California." And I was like, "Darn it! I should have
missed
suggested
it.
that one."
Missed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that would have been so cool. So were you actively working like with Stadia on these things, or this is just like
Yeah, I
your
mean, we had a really good line of communication midway through. Towards the end, it kind of, it was kind of hit and miss. But during the mid period of Stadia, like, yeah, I had an open line of communication where if I needed clarification, or if I needed advice, or if I needed to pitch them on a video to go do something, like, we talked about going to, I was like, I will jump on a plane, get a hotel, and I will film the Google store in New York City. I was like, let me just give me filming permission to be there. And unfortunately, Google couldn't get that accomplished. But like, there was conversations like that happening a lot behind the scenes where I was like, can we do this? And it was just, no. Can we do this? No. And I was like, okay, guys, like, and that's the part where it sucks, because you spend 3 years of your life creating content about a platform. And I didn't work for Stadia and I didn't work for Google, but you still have that same investment. And you're just kind of like, I I can't help but feel like you guys are like, I'm trying to help. Like, I want to help as much as possible, but it just wasn't being received in a way. I don't know. It's hard to kind of describe that.
So we have a comment from Justin. He never,
Oh,
I don't think he experienced Stadia the way some of us experienced it. And so I wanna put this comment to you. And what would you tell him, right? Because the way you speak it, he says, "I look at Stadia this way. If it was everything was intended to be, it would have been readily accepted by the gamers, but it didn't, and it failed. True or false?"
yeah, I mean, if we're gonna say true to Stadia failed, I think Stadia definitely failed. I think Stadia moved the needle big time when it came to gaming. I think that like if you look at where Xbox is today with cloud gaming or GeForce Now or any of these other cloud gaming platforms, a lot of the moves that those companies made were because of Stadia. So like from Google's perspective, if their goal from the beginning was to move the goalpost and to push gaming forward, then technically you could say that like they accomplished that. But like realistically, what Stadia was trying to accomplish was like we want to be an alternative platform to PlayStation and to Xbox. So from that perspective, they did kind of fail because they shut down. Um, I look at Stadia's launch, and obviously there's been millions of videos and millions of conversations about this, but like Stadia didn't launch well, and that was one of the major first factors. I think if you ask anyone who was involved with Stadia, if you were to go like a year in, like when all the Cyberpunk stuff went down, I think Stadia was firing on all cylinders at that point. And if Stadia would have launched at that time period, I think it would have been a completely different situation. That if Stadia's here and they have all the functionalities and features that they did 1 year in, it would definitely be a completely different conversation of. And honestly, Stadia might still be around if that was the case.
Interesting. So what do you make of the comments, Phil Harrison made that, one of the reasons that they shut down their studio was because of Cyberpunk.
You and I think we've had this conversation, right? I think we've had it
I
offline. Yeah,
right.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. We
but you want me to.
Yeah, I think you were because I was always under the impression that Phil said that he was like, um, we're shutting it down because we saw the success of Cyberpunk, and we don't need to do that. And then like somebody pushed back. If it wasn't you, it was someone else, and they were like,
I
find
definitely
the
push back on that sentiment for sure.
yeah, yeah, because they were like, find the quote, and I was like, I can't find the quote. Like that was just, I guess, something we created in the community. But like, I think if Stadia would have launched a month before Cyberpunk and said Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be a launch title, and then you see all of the issues that the other platforms went through, and Stadia was readily available to be an alternative, and it was this new cool thing that people could check out. I genuinely think that we would have had a different conversation. Plus, you know, Stadia launched without any real exclusives, right? Stadia Games and Entertainment was out there functioning, but like when PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, or any of these platforms launch, they always have some type of exclusive out there. For Stadia Games and Entertainment to come out and not really have what was the first exclusive? It was
I
uh,
think they had a time
Ember.
exclusive with they had a time exclusive with Darksiders Genesis, right? That
Okay,
was
yeah,
one of them. They obviously had Ember. They had uh, Rouster, and I know this one well. Orcs Must Die 3.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
But
so they
like, if
did
they
have
would
a.
have had like a Stadia exclusive game to be like, like look at how well Astro Bots shows off the PlayStation 5. Like it shows all the functionality. If Stadia would have had a game at launch that was like, here's the potential of cloud gaming, and here's why this is going to be unlike anything you ever tried before, I think that you probably would have had a different launch, and perhaps, and obviously like hindsight's 2020 and we're like playing couch CEO here, but yeah, there probably would have been a different scenario where Stadia Games and Entertainment would have still existed, and that might have been the first nail in the coffin looking back of just like, yeah, you kind of pulled the rug from underneath the team there and it kind of sucked.
So question to you on this one. I'm going to give you an ultimatum,
Okay.
right? Obviously, Stadia. I don't know if this would actually happen, but based on timing, we could maybe say this was probably a decision that had to be made. You have a choice. You have a platform that is about 75, 80% baked. You can launch now. Or you can wait a year to get it fully baked. But potentially, the window to launch, because of the needs of the business, is shifting. We say this is no longer a priority. We don't see the investment. You now run the risk of potentially the project never getting off the ground.
Yeah, I mean that's the behind the scenes, right? That we don't really consider
I
for
don't know. I don't know.
corporations.
I'm asking you, like,
In my opinion, now my background is I do sales in the construction industry, and we're launching products for customers in the construction industry. And our mentality when it comes to sales is you never get a first chance, or you never get your first opportunity again.
right,
So if you launch 70% half baked and it's not at its full potential and it doesn't land, trying to re-land that in a couple years, it's doable, but people will always have that asterisk or that memory of like, oh, you made an improvement to this product, but still, remember when you had all these issues with the product to begin with. Now, I don't understand how Google works as a company. I'll be the first to admit that. But like, if I were there, I think I would have been heavily pushing for like, let's wait till this thing is fully ready. Especially in today's world where you can become a meme in the matter of seconds. That it's like, hey, let's make sure we get this 100% right.
interesting. No, I see it's a question. I'm sure once NDAs stop and someone
Yeah.
decides, I think there's several books in the works already about that whole entire launch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it is definitely, it will always go down as one of my top three platforms of all
Yeah.
time, and that includes the chessboard. Everybody knows that's my first favorite platform of all time, the chessboard. So the Stadia is
Yeah.
in the top three there.
Yeah, I mean,
So
Stadia was, and that's the thing. It's like towards the end, I understand that there were people in the community who like I was upsetting because um, my tone around Stadia had kind of evolved, right? It was
yes,
turning to more of a negative sense, but um, you know, the thing that I had to keep reminding people is that like, look, I create content. My audience watches this content. And when they hear me say something, they expect that to be the truth, and they expect that to be, able to trust that this is really how Bryant feels. Um, I spent almost 2 years just preaching and praising the world of Stadia. So then you come to the end and games aren't coming to the platform. And then you have games are buggy on the platform. And you're just like, man, this thing that I've been telling people for the last 2 years to invest into and that it's totally awesome is starting to show some warts. And like, if I were to brush that aside, I feel like that would be doing a disservice to my audience of saying, like, hey guys, yeah, I'm ignoring this. This is still awesome as it can be. Like, let's get it going there. But then it's just this really awkward balance of like, you love this thing and you want it to succeed and you want it to do better than it's doing. But then at the same time, it's like, when is enough when you're like, hey man, like I'm throwing my hands up here. Like I'm trying to help you on my side, create videos, try to create content. But yeah, I don't know. It was such a weird it was a very emotionally charged time, I
yeah,
think, for a lot of creators because the potential for Stadia was there. Like Google hit the technology out of the park. No one has matched that. Xbox Cloud Gaming is still around, but it's not Stadia. GeForce Now, their quality of streaming is good, but it is not Stadia. Nobody out there has hit that platform with a storefront that targets that console gamer. Nobody else really has that option out there. And to see that just kind of wilt away was it was frustrating. Like it was such a bummer towards the end. And they talk about like when you lose something, you go through the stages of um,
grief.
grief. And I feel like every Stadia content creator and player went through that, right? And there's people that I know that were like diehard Stadia fans. And I watched it firsthand. Like I saw them start with anger and then go to sadness and then go through it. And then I think we're all in this position where we're like looking back and we're just like, man, like the potential was there. Like this, it was real, it was cool, but it didn't happen. It just sucks.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any regrets?
Um, in what sense?
So sometimes we bring on people onto the channel and we'll ask them, especially since it's been closed, or I'll be on a show with them, and a
Mhm,
question will come up about Stadia. And a great example of this is Cowboy, and your mama knows.
mhm,
He will say, if I had known this is what Stadia would have been, I would have never done Stadia content. Do you
mm.
have any regrets pursuing Stadia, experiencing Stadia?
No, no. Stadia grew my channel to what it is. Stadia grew me as a creator as well. Um, we went from making videos where I was just standing in front of a camera to doing like videos where we're testing things out. We're taking Stadia to Hawaii and testing it out in an unsupported market and doing stuff that like we never did before. So it helped me grow as a creator. And I will always look at Stadia like that, right? Like that was that moment in my career of content creation. It's like Stadia helped me become the creator I am today. Um, the regrets that I have towards the end though is that like I think that I was not in an emotional place as a human to deal with the feedback of being negative on Stadia.
Mm,
I think there was a lot of passionate people about Stadia, and trust me, for 2 years I was passionate as well, and I was guilty of some of the same things. But towards the end, I don't know if I was mature enough to handle uh, the DMs, the nasty tweets, the snide remarks, and there's a lot of people who are blocked and banned and muted on Twitter who that looking back on it, what did they really say? Did it really need to be it? But I was just in a position where I was just like, I don't need that in my life right now. Like I'm already dealing with the frustration of like
mm.
my favorite platform is coming to an end. I don't need these other things in my life. So that would probably be the only regret is like I wish I was in a more emotional, competent place to be able to deal with that feedback or that negative feedback.
No, I mean, I think it shows. Like, I remember probably about a year to around this time, your video started taking a little, like, you would maybe end it with a question, right?
Mhm,
It wouldn't be necessarily a rallying around the flagpole as much as it was like starting to open that Pandora's box. And we saw Stadia creators probably 2 years ago to the day, you know, not to the day, but around this time when Stadia closed his down, Stadia Games and Entertainment, there's that split, right? And then last year, I think you were kind of one of that first wave of now content creators who are very Stadia, who are starting to now question it. I wouldn't say you broke away at all, but
mhm,
you definitely started questioning it. And for so many people, um, the Stadia was that was their platform, right? Some people wore it as an identity. Some people took it as like an attack on them. Uh, as a content creator, sometime like here's a question to you. You're evolving, right? And you've said like, hey, I have to be honest basically to myself
mhm.
to because that's my content. You're the Nerf report. You said you wanted to nerf the news. You wanted to basically do that. What's it feel like when your audience isn't at that same spot? Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you've cultivated this audience, this community. You are a voice,
Mhm,
and now you are the group that basically built you, right? Because they're just as much a part of the channel as you are, right?
mhm.
What does that
Yeah,
feel like?
it's not a fun experience, and, in some sense, it's weird to say this, but Stadia shutting down was almost a godsend from that perspective, because there was a point where it was like, I firmly believe that if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, right? There shouldn't be I shouldn't wake up and say, how am I going to make a video that's going to piss off the Stadia community today? That's not what the type of content I want to create. So then it was like, all right, well, let's start branching out. Let's diversify. Let's put an Amazon Luna video up. Let's put a GeForce Now video up. Let's put an Xbox Cloud. But those videos wouldn't perform as well as the Stadia videos because, to your point, the audience is there for Google Stadia. So Stadia shutting down almost forced other content creators, including myself, to transition whether or not our audience liked it or not. So I think at a point I was there from a creation standpoint where I was like, man, I'm exhausted. Like I'm so invested in Stadia and I want this thing to succeed. But when I speak my mind, I'm getting hateful DMs. I'm getting tweets that are coming at me on the left and right. Do I really want to create Stadia content if this is what's going to end up being? And, I've had conversations with other creators offline that were like, hey, why'd you stop making Stadia videos? And like, that was the question I had for them. And their response was like, I can't do a stream and act like I was excited for Paw Patrol. Like, it's just, that's kind of where the platform became. And I was like, wow, I've been thinking that. I didn't want to say that. And it was kind of like that, okay, other people are having this conversation too. So for Stadia to close was kind of like the good opportunity for me as a creator to be like, all right, this chapter's over. It was fun. Like I said, it evolved me as a creator, and in a lot of ways, it made me a better person. But we can move on now, and we don't have to worry about upsetting that audience. But I will tell you, there were many nights where it's like, how do I do this? How do I transition to create content that I want to create versus talking about Stadia and have to being like, yeah, this is cool, and not really being into it,
That's interesting because the reason I say that's interesting because if we go back, it's so weird to like if we go back to that time, it's like 7-8 months ago.
Behind the music, let's do it.
Right. But so because I definitely hear about the games, getting excited about the games, and there's some people who are really excited about that. But there was a lot of people who are really excited about Stadia because of the technology, the smoothness of it, right? And if we think about what was happening last year, the summer of 2022, we heard about country expansion. We started to see what other Stadia always gave us what other platforms charge, right? Multiplayer is basically for free. We start to see this the streaming one where you could go watch someone inside the stream and play it there. There's a couple of other ones I can't even think about right now that were these technological advances that we had not seen on the platform. Like Stadia actually continued to kind of still make these advances over and over. But during this time, you started breaking away. So would you say you were really for Stadia because of the content versus the technology, or?
No, I was definitely there for the technology. I think when you look at it, like the technology is the part that's always fascinated me because I to this day will say that Stadia's controller link, what do they call that? Bridge mode. I still think bridge mode was like a work of art. It blew my mind that like I could literally take any controller, plug it into my phone, and be able to play Stadia. Like that was such a cool technology. I think less on the content perspective, but it was more in the sense of like, okay, Stadia has been around for 2 years. Behind the scenes, we can assume Stadia was around for a year or 2 years before it actually came out. I think it was like 2 years before Stadia came out, we heard Google's talking with developers about a potential platform. And so you have 4 years right there. And it's like year 2, Elden Ring. Elden Ring didn't come. Another game comes out, hits the wall, doesn't come to Stadia. And you start going through this list of games and you're just like, is the writing on the wall in front of me? Like Stadia's here, the technology's great, but we're going into year 3 and we're not hearing anything from larger developers or the big players about these games coming to the platform. And I, more than anyone, wanted Stadia to be that platform that I just throw myself into. that I can get rid of my PlayStation, get rid of my Xbox. But because that wasn't happening, it just was frustrating. It's like, yeah, it's cool that we're going to Turkey, or it's cool that, we might be expanding to this region. But if Capcom's not bringing their latest game, if From Software's not bringing in their game, at what point, how many years do we go without a Call of Duty? It's just like one of those. It's like, is this platform really going to be worth it?
I hear you. I
Yeah.
hear you. I think like I just go back to it and thinking about the game, and I think I've talked about the Call of Duty Activision deal before on my channel, and just kind of knowing how the games industry works. I wonder. I think Stadia, to a degree, overpromised
Hmm.
and underdelivered, but I'm not sure if it was necessarily. Uh, I don't think I've ever said this, but to me, I just think gaming went a different direction.
Yeah, I
Right.
would definitely agree with you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think like if gaming had went down the direction where it was what people wanted, because if we go back to 2015, 2016, Stadia was the answer to a lot of what we had asked for.
Hmm.
But to me, gaming just kind of went a different direction. And to certain business models, I don't think it made sense. For Google, it doesn't make sense to spend 10 to $20 million on something at most 50,000 players may play on it. I kind of see it from that direction, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, Jack Buser came out with an article a few days ago, and he was actually the first industry hire for the Google team, and for games, that is. And I think he basically said, that the vision of what Stadia was ultimately that launched was not the initial vision
Hmm.
for Stadia. And so now I think it's always interesting to remember it for what it was. Um, so I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions, about it. Like what was your favorite memory of Stadia?
Oh
Actually, let's
man.
start the other way. What was your least favorite memory of Stadia? Not including the shutdown.
um, my least favorite moment of Stadia. I'm not going to say the shutdown, but I am going to say the final days leading up to the shutdown. Because there was a lot of, like, on my end, there was a lot of vitriol, a lot of, my friend likes to say that I killed Stadia, and I don't like taking that. But 2 weeks before Stadia shut down, we posted that video that was like, "Stop buying games on Stadia." And then, a couple weeks later, we get the announcement that Stadia is shutting down, and the amount of negativity and vitriol that came at me after that video saying stop buying games on Stadia, that was probably my least favorite memory of the platform. It has nothing to do with Stadia, but like when I think of Stadia as a whole, unfortunately, that gets grouped into it. I mean, there was a point where we had a member of the Stadia community tell a journalist that they had to repent from their sins, and I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like, this is a gaming platform. We're supposed to
What?
have
I don't even
fun.
know what that meant. What you just said, like my mind just was like, "What?"
Yeah, and like I don't like talking about the moment where somebody put like a journalist's face on a wanted poster, but like when they threatened a journalist and said that they have to no, sorry, not repent, account for their sins was their exact terminology. And at that point I was like, okay, this is getting way beyond just video games. Like, this is becoming, people are invested in this, and me posting a video like this is a personal attack to them. Um, and it was just, those days were very dark for myself and a few other creators towards the end. And that would probably be my least favorite part of Stadia. Other than that, everything else I absolutely loved.
The last days.
Yeah.
Interesting. When I think about like dark, I never actually asked myself this. To me, it was always just a gaming platform that brought me back to gaming. So to
Yeah.
me, it brought me to gaming. So how it created, and it birthed the show. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of it to thank for that. Um, I have to think about that. I never actually past that one. I know the last days of the platform, I think I was actually pretty excited
Mm.
for certain things just because some of the newer features I really liked. Like I could,
Yeah, they
I think
just
I
launched the brand new UI like the day before.
yeah, the brand
Yeah.
new UI was there, but for
Yeah.
me personally, like my mom, she likes to watch my brother. Like my brother and I are both like grown adults, and she likes to watch us play, and so she could do that. Like he could play where he lives, I could play where I could live, and I could send her a link to come in
Yep.
and watch us. And to me, I was just so excited about that.
Yeah.
Like I was like, and it was easy for me to tell her like just do this and do that, and I was actually pretty excited about it. I think, um, and I was satisfied. I think that's the thing about a gaming. I was satisfied with it, but I could definitely. I think I even messaged you one time. Like I was like, Brian, are you serious about this? Like what you wrote once, like one of your videos, and we had like you took your time to write me, and I really appreciated it that.
Mhm.
But thinking about a more positive time, what was your most positive moment?
Yeah, there was a lot more positives than negatives. That first moment of playing Destiny was up there.
Destiny's,
Like
yeah,
when it
Destiny allows a
worked
lot of
for the
people.
first time, I was like, "Oh my God, this they did it! Like Google did it! Like that's awesome." Um, I think also, oh man, there's Outcasters. Outcasters was a very magical moment for a lot of people. A lot of the creators in the community, that was like Stadia's first real kind of exclusive that was coming out, and the community embraced that game like crazy, and it was fun, like just being able to play with members of the community, doing live streams with it. That was a magical time, and Krata was cool, and Krata was a lot of fun as well. But yeah, I gotta say Outcasters. Like Outcasters
Outcasters.
might be the peak for me of like that was when Stadia was really cool. Um, and I think unfortunately after that, a couple weeks later, someone can look at the timeline. I'm not 100% sure there, but like right after Outcasters is kind of when the shutdown. Am I thinking of that correctly? Yeah, Outcasters came with the Stadia uh, uh, Connect, right? Is that what they were called?
Stadia, the connect where they would come in, where you would have either it wasn't
Yeah.
Jack, it was the other guy, the other
Phil Harrison and like other people from the studio would
yeah,
be
it was
on there.
another senior VP dude,
Yeah,
John Justice
there you
or
go. Yeah,
something.
they did one with Xavier Woods from the WWE, and that was when they announced Outcasters, and it was like the end of the year, and then January or February the next month over, that's when they announced that it was closing. And I feel like among the community, when Outcasters was out, we were all like, "We're in. Like this is great." People weren't bickering at each other. People weren't saying Stadia's dead, Stadia's dying. Like that wasn't even in the lingo, and that was probably the peak for me. What about you?
The peak. Oh my gosh, I think it was like I said, I was always satisfied. Like you're right, there was a lot of momentum there for me. Like coming into the like content creation, there was like kind of a
Mhm.
group of us, Lo-Fi Monk, Main Games, One Star, to a degree, Ninja Guy X. He was a little before me, but there was a whole group of us who were really getting momentum right as like I think a lot of people started souring on it. So and I had been playing Stadia for about 2 years prior to making content. So
Yeah.
but I think like I said, Destiny was the game where I thought this was crazy. So a confession, Stadia didn't work for me initially.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it did not work for me. There was like I was playing games and there was a little bit of lag, but it was like, okay, this is easy enough, um, to kind of play. Like I would mess around with it, like my phone would get super hot. And then it wasn't until like I guess I gave it another try and and then it just worked. I was like, oh wow, phone's not hot, like everything's working well. So I think that moment where it was like, oh, it's working, it's working. Yeah, like that to me, and it had to be Destiny because I remember Floor Kids was a favorite game, but I still remember there
Mhm.
was a lot of lag in that one. But
Mhm.
but I think it was Destiny and just putting time in that, and then um, but obviously anytime I did something with the community, like Vet Cloud Gaming, if he's still here, there was a whole group of them. Vet, Jim, Megatron, Ray the Gaming Cyborg, SPG. They were doing Rainbow Six, and I just remember waking up on a Saturday and playing and jumping into there. So I think anything where I got to play with people and connect with people I would have not connected with was a
Right.
great moment for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Good
but
times.
it was a great time. But for chat, I want to get them because there's a lot of Stadia people in here. I know there's some people who didn't. Justin didn't believe. Yeah, no, you're the reason, Justin. While it's not here, you, you know. But for chat, if you're still out there, what was your favorite moment with Stadia, or it could be your favorite game? I'll give you either favorite moment or favorite game.
What
And
was your
so,
favorite game?
like I said, I think Lamote's kind of cheating because I said that.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's not a Stadia exclusive, but it was the game where I was just like, man, this is beautiful. This is so cool, and that's Little Nightmares too.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah, that there. I mean, most
You see,
hours I
that was
yeah
right around that time period where everything was making sense. Like Little Nightmares 2 came out and I was like, "Oh, yeah, we're doing this." Like that's
yeah
a
no, it came out.
direct to Stadia Pro and like let's fricking go. And then it's just
No, Little
yeah.
Nightmares 2. I mean, the most time I put in a game would have probably been either Rainbow Six or Outriders. Both of those had a significant amount of time from me. But I mean, each of them, just like I'm just imagining that library, just going and seeing my favorite games kind
Yeah.
of at the top. But what about you? Favorite game?
So favorite game on the platform, Orcs Must Die was definitely a
Of course,
solid game.
yes, Orcs
That
Must
was,
Die.
and then if you look at like hours, it was probably Creta. Like Creta, I spent a lot of time making games in that platform, and yeah, that's
Yeah,
another thing that I lost in the past couple. I
yeah.
lost Stadia and I lost Creta within like 5 months of each other.
Crata went away. For me, is the only thing that I had for Stadia where I'm like the only like it closed down and I was kind of okay with it. Lost a lot of my achievements, lost a lot of my progress. Like on Red Dead Redemption, like I hadn't beaten that game, but I was far, and so I kind of like lost some progress there. But the only game that I was super upset about, and a lot of people don't know this, but I actually called Stadia about like I called a friend who called a friend who called a friend to talk to Stadia, and was Outriders. I was so
Oh,
upset that I could not get my character, and credit to Stadia's team because here I am just kind of a no one, and they reached out to People Can Fly, and I think I told this story to someone the other day, Blee Flo Fla, if he's still around. I told this story to him, and so no joke, they reached out to People Can Fly to say, yo, can you do this? Like, uh, what's it called? Rockstar is doing this for us, and IO Interactive is doing this for us for Hitman. Some of our games that are using online servers are allowing us to transfer it over. And it went back and forth for about a week, and they said, "Sorry, Purple. Basically, they can't do it."
yeah.
I was crushed, and I said, "Well, why can't you do it? Like I will pay the porting costs of this game. Like this is important to me, or like to take the data." And they came back and they said, "Well, there's another platform that there's some bylaws that if you have a feature on one platform, you have to have that feature on another one." And all the platforms minus this one, they would never tell me who it was, but they're saying this one platform is not letting us do it. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I've heard it's actually the other one. I've heard it was
Oh,
actually
really?
the other
Oh,
one.
okay.
Yeah, it was one of the two. The one of them said, so it was a powerful one too, that said, basically,
Anytime someone like says something like that, I'm like, that's probably Sony.
yeah.
Like,
So they said it was that, but they said, but then they said, but the bigger reason, because they were willing to fandangle it, right? They were willing to make to make a deal. But then they came back and they said, well, we don't have resources for it. And I was like, why don't you have resources for it? And they're like, well, it's almost towards the end of its product cycle. And I was like, this sucks. And so I was like, I got to get a consolation prize out of this. So I asked them, like, well, is it because of Outriders 2? And they go, well, it's partly because of Outriders 2, but it's our, but it's mostly because we don't have any resources to put in there because it's at the end of its product cycle. And I was like, that's good enough for me. There's going to be an Outriders 2.
Yeah.
So I am kind of okay with like that is my like little story about Stadia and Outriders and People Can Fly. And kind of my disappointment is that was my final consolation prize. Like I was like, okay, I'm okay to see goodbye to my level 65 Pyromancer on Outriders.
Until you find out that Outriders 2 will have character transfer. Like
Stop it! Stop it! Don't do this to me. But I will be running it back with most likely Ambient, Squids, David Wilson, a couple of the people I used to run Outriders with. I'm sure the Sneak if he's out there.
I don't know if that has if that's open knowledge that Outriders 2
that's what they told. They can always cancel it though. They can always cancel it. They can always cancel it. But that was the actual reasoning, like off the cuff, because I was making a huge stink about it. Like, why can't you do this? Blah 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 blah. And then he let that slip. Like, well, it's partly because of Outriders. You know what it was. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm cool.
That's cool. That's cool.
I'm cool. But no, I'm seeing like some amazing comments about like just like people's favorite game, favorite moments. Can't go wrong with Lurks Must Die 3. Of course, roster, you cannot go, Chosen One, Dead by Daylight, as well as Rainbow Six. Rainbow Six was huge. Division 2, I'm seeing that. Krata and Killer Queen Black. Killer Queen Black is another one that was a casualty, probably casualty of just the gaming industry as a whole. Obviously, it was on Stadia. They were huge supporters of the platform doing play days. So when you think about it, there's just so many great. We talked about it. We talked about the Outcasters. We talked about a couple of games here that, it wasn't because of Stadia, but they were all kind of killed in that. Killed is a harsh term. They were put down during that time.
They were snapped by Thanos, and they just. Oh.
Yeah. So what have you been doing recently? So what have you been doing lately? Stadia closed down. You had to pivot. You probably saw the decline in viewership and you lost some subscribers, probably like a lot of us did.
Yeah.
What have you been doing? Like, how? Obviously, you started kind of pivoting out before Stadia's closure. You started doing Luna. You started doing GFN. You started doing xCloud. But Stadia closes down. You do that heartfelt stream that day. We both did it. I think we were doing it around the same time or that Thursday. Where have you went since then? What are the lessons learned from Stadia? And
I've been on a sabbatical. I've been wandering the desert, trying to rediscover. Is that
where the beard is like? Because this is kind of, like you're like.
Yeah, it's exciting because it's a fun like renaissance of creativity. Because like from a creator perspective, I've had a lot of conversations with other creators where I was like, it sucks that Stadia is shutting down, but you have to see the opportunity that like you get to redefine. Like you get to redefine who you are as a creator and go experiment, go crazy. And I think the big takeaway, like we talked about in the beginning of the stream, was that my takeaway from Stadia, at least, was that niche content outperforms casting a wide net. So the show has definitely evolved in a sense, and there's some stuff going on behind the scenes that I'll be announcing in a couple weeks that it's going to continue to evolve. But like, I wanted to differentiate the Stadia era of content and this new like unknown era, right? So there's little changes that we made. Stadia content, we were always standing up in the videos. Uh, Went out, bought a desk, put a desk in the videos, and like that's a small little thing, but it changes the presentation, it changes the delivery, and it changes kind of the pacing of the video as well. So it's like, all right, we'll test out this new like desk conversation type of video, and then you know I started saying like we're going to do daily content. um, we were already doing daily in a way, but it wasn't consistent. So every single day so far in 2023 we've had some form of video content uploaded to TikTok or YouTube or Twitter.
Wow.
So yeah, I
Every
mean,
day?
every day. Yeah, so if you go from January 2nd to today, we've had some form of video content, albeit a short or a video or something, go live. Because in the world of content creation, YouTube in particular, there's 5,000 hours of content uploaded every 60 seconds. So every hour, there's 5,000 hours of content. So the moment that your video uploads, you're dealing with so much other videos that are out there. So it's like, all right, let's do daily, and we've seen a growth from there and an increase of community interaction and new people joining the community from there. And moving forward, it's just going to be doubling down a lot on that niche of a niche of a niche. So I'll probably be launching some side channels, working with other people in the community to kind of help me do some other stuff. And then eventually, the long term goal is for Nerf Report or Nerf Gaming to be a live show and basically treat it more like a studio experience with, segments, guests, different type of things that are going on, and treat it more like a show than just kind of little segments or stuff like that are going on.
Wow. So and so is it Nerf Report or Nerf Gaming, Nerf News? Like, I've
Yes.
gotten questions about this name change.
Yeah, so that was one of the big changes too, is I always looked at Nerf Report as like Stadia, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, Stadia, Nerf Report, I love that stuff. Like that's where I go for my Stadia stuff." And I was like, I kind of want to change it. And I decided on Nerf Report 6 years ago, and I was like, "Yep, that'll work." But then we ran into the situation where like people were like, "Oh, I came to this channel thinking it was going to be a report on Nerf guns." Like, and I'm like, oh, don't like that. I was like, I would love to have like gaming be in the title. So that's where Nerf Gaming News came in, and we've pretty much just run from it from there. But yeah, that name change was mainly due to like I wanna be able to say like, here was the Stadia chapter, here is post Stadia, and this is where we're headed, and just have it feel like a fresh new change, a new paint, a new coat of paint in a way.
Awesome job. And I want to say shout out to Blee Flo Fla. Had his first day of his semi new job today. So hopefully that
Oh,
went well, Blee.
congratulations.
Yeah, hopefully I'll catch up with you on that one. Just talking in there. It says you do fantastic work. Keep it up, man.
Thank you.
Both of you are
Chosen one in the
Texans.
chat. Chosen one, Aaron Rodgers. I'm a New York Jets fan, so I will definitely take Aaron Rodgers. He's about to be our quarterback, so let's go.
Oh wow. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, and then mostly put in the chat too. You also have Nerf Gaming in Espanol, and Javier does a fantastic job
yes.
over there. And that's kind of been a blessing in disguise, because like I'm so overloaded with my normal day job and then content creation and being a husband and being a father, that like when they were like, "Hey, do you want to do Spanish?" And I was like, "Guys, I don't have time for this." And they're like, "No, we'll handle it." That was huge. Like Javier has been killing it over there. I think that channel surpassed 500 subscribers. So, those guys have been doing a great job.
Nice. One question I always have for you, and I didn't quite understand. It happened last year. The channel changed ownership or something. It's like you all had some like what was that? Like
Yeah, that
you
was mainly tax purposes.
okay.
It was incorporation. So my buddy and I went in, we started a company, and that company owns the ownership of this channel along with three other channels. So it's basically like, it's a parent company, but I'm still pretty much like 100% owner of the channel, and I'm also like a 75% owner of the parent company. So at that time period, it was like, yeah, we probably should be a little more clear, because I got a DM that made me like genuinely laugh, where someone's like, yeah, I enjoyed your content, but you really changed when you got bought out. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, when you got bought out, your parent company started telling you to be negative about Stadia. And I was like, I'm part owner of the parent company. Like, what are you talking about? But like,
No,
I don't know. It's bizarre.
no, that's super. No, I was always wondering about that. I was like, it has to do something with something's going on, and he needs a public
Yeah,
facing statement to make it
yeah,
official.
yeah. And it's one of those. It's like it's for tax purposes to start, like, because it's, the revenue coming in is evolving to the point where it's like, this isn't just like a side gig. You have companies approaching you and stuff like that, so you have to have a level of professionalism there. But gaming isn't the final chapter. Like, I would love to get Nerf gaming news to a point where it's like it can stand on its own 2 feet. We bring in that next generation of hosts and next generation of talent, and then go off and create other verticals. Have like underneath Monkey Brain Entertainment, which is the umbrella company. There's so many other verticals to get into, whether it be like children's content, or like beauty supplies, or music, or all these different other things. Star Wars, comics.
Star
There's
Wars.
so
I was
many.
thought mostly Martinez is part of a Star Wars podcast.
Yeah,
So
like, there's so many other verticals to get into, and doing that was kind of like, we're laying the groundwork. Like, we're laying the groundwork, and some of the stuff that we have going with the other channels coming out will also be underneath that umbrella. But like, early on, I got the opportunity to work with Rooster Teeth down here in Austin, and the big takeaway that I had from going there was like, they have one stage, and they have all of their sets on rollers. And so, this podcast rolls in, they film it, that they roll it off, move in the next podcast, that team comes in, films it, they roll it off, move the next stage in. And it's like, oh, that's actually a great way to do this. And if you just have one facility and you film all of your content one after another, after another, and after another, you just turn it into like a machine like that. That's how these entertainment companies exist. And so, like, that's kind of what we're doing with Monkey Brain, is trying to create a similar environment where we can create content that's not just video game news and stuff like that.
no, that sounds super exciting. And Justin Ascendant Justice in chat doing his making things rowdy, saying needed an internet connection. Justin, that's like saying you're trying to cut the cord. Of course, you need an internet connection. Like, come on, man. But no, Justin's always great fun. Always provides that friction in the chat. But Bryant, I know you have a 16-month-old that has been very generous to us with your time. And so I mean, thank you so much for we were trying to set this up for a while, and I know you always let me know like you're free, and so I'm glad I could do it. This was just awesome to talk to. Just one of those people who really loved and I think I can truly say this, loved Stadia, was in there, saw all the emotions, everything in it. I'm super happy to see your success, super happy to see your future successes as you continue to grow, and you've given us a lot to think about, because a lot of us are building our own channels. But with that said, usually I say, where can they find you next? But you're saying you're uploading stuff every day. So like,
Yeah.
what is something that you want the audience to know? And it's maybe something that we kind of skipped over earlier. It may be something like, hey, this is where I'm going. This is where I'm going to be streaming next. But if there could be one thing you want the gaming community, many of us have followed you, support you, what is one thing? And some of us you blocked, right? So knowing that there are people in the chat that you have blocked, that does not.
Yeah.
What is one thing that you would tell this interesting, diverse group of people?
I'm not going to take the spotlight from me. What I'm going to say is, think a developer. In the experience that I've had with the show, of talking with developers, no one sets out to make a bad game. right? Nobody sets out to say we're going to release a buggy game at launch. Everybody sets out to be creative and to create something that they think is cool, and hopefully it'll get embraced by a community, or gamers will think it's cool. So I guess where to leave it is to say, hey, when you're playing the next game or you're going through it and you roll credits on it, Google one of the people on that game, track them on Twitter, and say thank you. Just say, hey, played your game, really thought it was awesome. Because at the end of the day, I don't think there's enough positivity on that end, and I don't think there's enough people thanking developers as much as there is people being critical and overly cynical to developers. So thank a developer. That'll be kind of where we leave it.
You should make that shirt. Thank a developer.
Thank a developer. Yeah, I mean, like it's what it is, right? Like no one sets out to make a bad game. Like everyone's just doing a passion project.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And for everyone, we will have a developer of a game coming. Actually, it's a little hint. Some of y'all may know this. It won't be next week, but it should be. We're setting up the time. But it is a brother duo. So we had a husband-wife tandem, but this one will be two brothers who built an amazing experience. More to come on that. That's all I'm going to say for now. But so we will be able to thank them for that game when it does happen here in the next probably next month, I would say.
Yeah, and also, sorry, I don't mean to cut in your. Thank you
Yeah,
for
go
letting me
ahead,
come
Brian.
on. No, I think that like what your show does is so awesome. Like I love seeing the highlights and the clips that I get to see of like where you're bringing on people from the community and giving them a voice, and I think that that's such an awesome opportunity. And even bringing developers on, like we don't get to do it as much as we used to, but giving developers a voice, I think, is so important, because in today's world, we're so easy to play a game and just say we're done. But like, okay, we beat it, we're over with. But like, if we start expanding that narrative and saying like, this game is Jack's game, or this game is Beth's game, or this is Lewis's game, instead of like, oh, this is the new game coming to PlayStation. It's like, no, I know the developer who made this. They're actually a really cool person. I want this to succeed, so I'm going to check it out. I think that's such a powerful thing. And as a gamer, thank you for doing that for developers.
No, well, you do it as well, Brian. And thank you for the chat. They just many in the chat do it. A shout out to Ninja Guy X, who's continuing to do it. And shout out to the chat that is worth 1 million subscribers. You heard it from Brian earlier. This chat is worth 1 million subs. So love having y'all here. Y'all know I appreciate your time so much. And you know where to find me. 8 p.m. Sundays. I'll be playing The Quarry. One chick, y'all, it was not my fault. That chick, she died. We lost one. Right, but we will be watching it. I will be playing it. Won't be, Oscars will be going on in the background, but I will be playing The Quarry. And then next week we'll have another amazing content creator. So stay tuned to that. It's been hard this year. It's been a little bit back and forth. So, but stay tuned for that. And with that, Brian, any last words before I do my closing?
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming. And
Anytime.
we'll talk a little bit behind the stage, the after show.
Yeah.
So if you're a member, you will be able to come to see that. Sorry, no one's a member, but Brian, we'll talk. And with that said,
yeah, guys, become a member. We're going to talk about really fun stuff, behind the scenes Stadia information.
Yeah. So with that said, though, I don't care where you game, how you game, why you game, when you game, what you game on, how long you game. As long as you're gaming, you're good with me. And as always, this is Purple Haze, and the proof is in the playing. All right, later, y'all. Music cool.